Rachel says. And then Sean showed up with a house full of whiskey, and I said, well, I'm going to switch over. I'll take 2 of whatever, Sean. I've been teaching composition this semester at UCF, and the students have to write a research. And the students have to write a research paper by the end of it. They can choose whatever they want to. So they choose some sort of activity that they're a part of. It could be their job, a club, a sport, whatever. And so they write this paper. It takes a whole semester. They write this big paper. And one of my students this year had worked at Starbucks, so she decided to write her whole paper on the language and literacy of Starbucks. Specifically, as the semester went on, in this really funny way, more and more about how men are really embarrassed to order girly drinks at Starbucks and say it in these very hushed tones, and found like all this research about how men will not order any of these, seasonal beverages at Starbucks, and had all these guys that she interviewed, because you had to go out, you had to actually do research, and she had all these guys she interviewed about, what do you order at Starbucks and why? And they're all very, well, men are very simple. Men drink simple drink at Starbucks. And I thought, well, this is great. It sounds a lot like Hemingway, my favorite old dead white guy. And so I wanted to try to pull together that voice of Hemingway with the fall seasonal beverage that Starbucks has to offer. All right. In the morning, many men and women went to Starbucks to drink. They stood in long lines leading away from the counter. They were sleepy, and they needed caffeine to be awake. They were to work long hours, and many of them had difficult and complicated jobs. The old man went to Starbucks to drink a pumpkin spice frappuccino. He drank at Starbucks often and always alone. The pumpkin spice frappuccino was a seasonal beverage, meaning one could only order it during the fall months. Fall was a cruel season. The changing of the leaves reminded the man that he was old and near to death, and more often than he would like to admit, he was afraid. The 2 baristas inside the Starbucks knew that the old man was already a little caffeinated when he showed up. They could often smell the coffee on his breath in the morning. The younger of the 2 baristas felt pity for the man. He thought the man weak because he needed caffeine to begin his day. If he were a real man, he would drink only small amounts of caffeine and wake up with a long run or sex with a woman he loved. The older barista liked the old man, though, because he often tipped $2, and the older barista felt underappreciated in his trade. He felt also that life was going to kill you either way. You could die quietly at home, but that real men were not afraid of caffeine, as it woke the body and readied it for death. Because eventually, the world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are caffeinated in the broken places. The old man ordered his pumpkin spice frappuccino and watched as the younger barista made it. The younger barista was young and had not yet come to fear baristaing, though in time the long hours would hurt his back and feet. The younger barista moved effortlessly around the blender, displaying his efficiency with the machine. The old man took notice of how the younger barista tilted the blender so that all the ice blended properly. Without tilting, the drink would not properly blend, and the experience of drinking it would be unsatisfactory. The old man felt a brotherhood with the barista, and also respect. For there are few men who truly live, and the old man knew that bullfighters and baristas were the only men who were really alive. That their closeness with death allowed them to appreciate life. The young barista applied whipped cream to the beverage. He was careful, sprinkling the ground cinnamon to the top, knowing that too much cinnamon would clog the straw as he drank, and that this too would be unsatisfactory to the drinking experience. When the man had taken his seat in the corner, he pushed the long green straw into the plastic round top of the drink. It was hot in the Starbucks. The AC was broken, and the man drank quickly, taking long draws on the frappuccino through the green straw. He should be careful, the older barista said, or he'll get a brain freeze. The younger barista nodded. He knew the pain of the freeze of the brain, and yet he knew also that these holiday flavors were here for a limited time only. Soon it would be Christmas, and then it would be peppermint mocha frappuccinos and caramel brulee lattes, and the younger barista knew that these drinks were far less satisfactory and did not deliver the same pleasure as the pumpkin spice. He knew that life was mostly empty, and except for a good meal or sex with the woman you loved or the pumpkin spice frappuccino, that there was little joy to be had. Even in his young age, he knew the emptiness that came with a holiday beverage. Though advertised as festive and cheerful, there was a great sadness in being a man and drinking alone, especially when it involved peppermint. When the morning rush had died down, the old man rapped on the table with his knuckle, and the younger barista went to him. "What do you want?" The old man looked at him. "Another frappuccino," he said. "You'll be hyper," the barista said. The old man looked at him, and the young barista went away. "He'll stay all day," he said to his colleague, and his colleague nodded. For he knew that the man would stay all day, that he would wait till another customer had finished their USA Today, and then would read it, cover to cover. "Last week he tried to commit suicide," the younger barista said. "Why?" "Who knows," the younger barista said. "His granddaughter told me." The older barista knew the younger barista had been sleeping with the old man's granddaughter on the sly, and he did not approve of this behavior, but knew the nature of men and could not blame the younger barista. The old man's granddaughter sometimes came to Starbucks with him, and she was indeed a fox. The older barista prepared another pumpkin spice frappuccino. He took it and a napkin to the old man. "You should not kill yourself while your granddaughter is still alive," he said to the old man, who was mostly deaf. The old man smiled at him. "Thank you," he said, and taking a crinkled $5 bill from his pocket, he handed the money to the older barista. The barista took the $5 back over to the cash register and stood next to his colleague again. "He's hyper now," he said. "He's hyper every day." "I'm sick of this place," the younger barista said. The older barista was silent. He was sick of Starbucks also. It was not his type of place. He enjoyed a nice gallery where you could get a glass of wine for cheap, where there were large windows, unfinished walls, and perhaps you could buy a collection forthcoming by a young author soon to be here. Because the older barista knew that later, lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, he would think back on his day, and that most of it would mean little. Or that sometimes, sitting in a room full of people, one might feel less alone, and laugh, or be touched in a small way, if only for a minute, becomes part of something larger than himself. Thank you.